And welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi. Will everybody at my table say hello?
Hello.
Hello, this is Dave Glado.
And coming back is hello, this is Alfredo Narvez.
And I'm Aaron Swoboda. We're sitting in my Star Wars room here, somewhere in the depths of Gentilly, I suppose. And we're going to be talking some more Mandalorian. Again, this is a podcast that is geared towards mostly Star Wars stuff. That's all we've been talking about so far, because there's just a plethora of Star Wars stuff.
That's right, El Jefe.
Yeah. And so didn't we say there was one episode that was the Three Amigos?
That's right. That was the previous one, chapter 4.
Right, Sanctuary. That's right. So we're here to talk Star Wars. We've got, it's the night before The Rise of Skywalker comes out. We haven't had an episode for a while. I had to go back to Nebraska for some family stuff. So we're here. We're back at it. But tomorrow is Rise of Skywalker. Are you guys excited?
Well, yes. Tempered enthusiasm, given some of the early reviews and some of the early returns that I'm trying to stay away from, but failing miserably at. It seems like a mixed reaction so far. So I'm really curious to see what we get.
I think we're going to be talking about that at some point. Just people's expectations about Star Wars stuff. I have my theories on that. But Fredo, you excited?
Yeah, actually, I've done a pretty good job. I know that just about everything under the sun in that movie has been spoiled. If you want to seek it out online, it's available there. I've not wanted to. I mean, realistically, they keep saying it's the end of the saga. May not be the last movie ever made.
They've said that 2 other times.
Oh, exactly, exactly. So I'm not. They got no stock in that way. But all the same, I want to go in. I went into Force Awakens cold. I went into Last Jedi cold. I want to go into Rise of Skywalker cold. It's weird. For the prequel trilogy, I was all about all the spoilers. I was at StarWars.net and learning everything I could before I walked in. And this time, I was like, no, just go in, enjoy them for what it is.
I remember when Episode 1 came out, they actually released the soundtrack.
Oh yeah, I bought it before it came out, like 3 days.
Yeah, I did not, but my friend calls me and was like, about swore on this podcast. We would have had to bleep that out. He's like, man, I get the soundtrack, and one of the tracks is Qui-Gon's funeral.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, but I guess there was this thing. We'll have to find it when we talk about Rise of Skywalker. But there was a funny, like fake tracks for this one. It's like,
that was amazing.
Luke,
I loved it so much.
Luke's not dead. LOL. Oh, he dies again. Rey's parents are Ewoks.
The Millennium Falcon explodes.
Yeah. There's all these track listings of spoilery stuff. I do know one. You can't call this a spoiler. Maybe we talked about this in one of our episodes. I cannot remember right now, but this was in one of their featurettes. There is Warwick Davis wearing an Ewok costume looking up at a wicket head, and there's going to be Ewoks. So
I feel confident in that. I don't want confirmation one way or the other, but I feel pretty confident.
I said I want Act 3 to have all of a sudden everybody comes out of hyperspace and all those ships that we've seen, and it's Gungans and battle droids and Ewoks and Jawas, and I mean everything that has ticked somebody off at some point in the fandom. Yeah, I want it,
bring it all back.
So we're going to do something different to start off after we just said our excitement. And by the way, I'll say what I'm thinking about The Rise of Skywalker is I'm actually taking Rian Johnson's advice from The Last Jedi, and that's leave your expectations at the door.
Yep.
It's if you come in with expectations, you're only going to be disappointed. And the only thing I remember, it's like somebody asked me when the Force Awakens title got released, they said, what do you think about the Force Awakens? I said, they could call it Episode 7, a big pile of bantha crap, and I would be happy. It's Star Wars. It's going to be fun. We'll hash it out and we'll, cuss about it. But
it's interesting you say that. Yesterday I was watching this movie critic on YouTube did this whole 90-minute breakdown of the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, and he said, look, I'm going to try to assess the movie as a movie, not as a franchise, not as the building block of the blockbuster machine in Hollywood, not go back before there was even A New Hope written on the title screen, when it was just a movie and it came out and nobody had any expectations. I'm like, because there was a point in your life where you had no expectations about what a Star Wars movie meant. And it's interesting that now any kind of movie and anything tied to has Star Wars on it has some sort of weight behind it, because you have the entire saga, you have all this decades of.
It's got a lot of
product.
baggage. It's got a lot of baggage.
And it's interesting if you can find a way to take all that baggage and kind of go, okay, I'm leaving it here. I'll come back to it. Let me just see what this is like and come back, if that's even possible.
And I think you do have to come back to it, because that's just part of the process. I have one of the reactions that I did hear for the new movie, which was
La 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 la.
yeah.
la,
I'm
la,
not
la, la.
gonna say anything about the movie.
Okay.
No specifics. It was very much this movie changes scenes that have occurred in other movies, and that's not a spoiler. That's just your interpretation of certain events, how you feel about certain things, the rhyming that occurs, the callbacks to previous scenes. And that's one of the most interesting things about these movies is, like, once you've seen it, that the newest episode,
Well,
it reinvents everything else.
So
and
they're
you
doing
have
a
to go
time heist.
back.
So are
Yeah.
they doing a time heist from Avengers Endgame?
but I'm just gonna say that this happened in the original trilogy.
Yep.
I mean, when it's like, in episode 4, we get Obi-Wan saying Darth Vader killed your father, and then Lucas has to write himself out of that one when he decides that no, Darth Vader is going to be the father. Okay, so that's where we get the certain point of view type of thing, and then it's like, Luke is making out with Leia at the beginning of Empire. Then all of a sudden they're twins, and okay, we got to figure that one out. So again, when we were 10, watching Empire, when I was 10, watching Return of the Jedi, I was like, oh, that's weird, but oh well, whatever. This is Star Wars. This is awesome. And now I'm at 46, and somebody sitting next to me is going to be going blah 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 blah. So anyway,
Retconning's been here since the beginning, to your point. But I also feel like, again, every time there's a new chapter, we get a little something new, and we get a reference back to that original work. And so if we go back and we revisit that original work, the original work changes for us as well.
So the thing I'm looking forward to is just seeing how J.J. Abrams wrote himself out of the corner that Rian Johnson wrote him into. I mean, it really was. He wrote himself into a corner where it's like, okay, so it'll just be interesting to see where they go. I've been looking forward to this movie because it's the first one where it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
Right.
Coming out of Empire, going into Jedi, okay, they got to find Han. They got to, Luke's got to deal with Vader because of the I'm your father thing, spoiler alert. And then, so we got all these things we got to deal with. So you can kind of guess. Now, I have no idea. But anyway, so we'll be talking about that after we see the movie. But we have something fun here to do. I pulled out the Star Wars Saga Edition Trivial Pursuit game, and I took out the card. So we each have a card, and we have not seen the card. I will start. I will ask Dave. Dave will test Dave's nerdum, and Dave will ask Fredo, and then Fredo will ask me. I have no idea what these categories are, so if you can guess, that's fine. But just pick whichever one we're going to see. So
There's a lot of pressure here.
and this covers episodes 1 through 6. So
Back
here,
when that was the whole saga?
yeah, well, it says DVD on the side of the box, so that's dating this pretty well too. All right, so Dave, since we talked about Ewoks earlier,
Sure.
what Ewok makes the pronouncement that the rebels are officially part of the tribe?
Well, I would guess that was Chief Chirpa.
Can we put in like music, in overdub music? It is not. It is 50 Shades of Low Gray.
Oh,
Low Gray, yeah. So it's been a while. All right. So I don't know. You have to go sit in the corner now. I don't know.
I guess so. Wow, that's my
Right.
Ewok knowledge needs work.
So
You gotta
Dave's
go
going to ask Fredo
Go watch
now.
Caravan of Courage.
What character asks, Binks, you having a live play with Deason Hissen?
Okay, so that would definitely be Boss Nass, a.k.a. The King of the Hawkmen, a.k.a. Brian Blessed, a.k.a. owner of one of the 10 coolest voices of all time.
I would have accepted Boss Noss, but
Yeah.
yes, you got it right.
I'm
Yep.
just saying because I love. Look, if you ever see British
Flash Gordon.
television, Brian Blessed is just, this is the most amazing thing ever. And he's like, oh my God, please narrate everything. Okay, so let's see. See some of this. Okay. What creature stalking Obi-Wan in the Geonosian arena scares a few battle droids away from a confrontation?
That was the Acklay.
That is the Acklay.
Yeah. So there you go.
Good knowledge there.
Right
That's
on.
right.
It's the big bug that is like creepy. So all right. So there's your Star Wars Trivial Pursuit. Maybe we'll do this each episode. You can play along. Like I said, we'll have to get our Jeopardy music in there. But let's move on to The Mandalorian. And we're talking about what? This is episode...
Chapter 5?
Chapter 5. This is The Gunslinger. And I have to do... Would this be a mea culpa? Yeah, I have to say that I was totally off on one of my guesses. I thought my guess was actually pretty good. Because I thought it was very symbolic. When the Mandalorian broke the Jabba door knocker thing, and I said... I think that symbolizes that, hey, we're done with all this fan servicey stuff. And, we're going to now just push right into the storyline here. And you're on board with all these characters. And so what happens in this episode? We go to Tatooine and we see pit droids. We go into the cantina. We see somebody sitting in Han's chair. We what else do we see here? There's
Man, they're all over the place.
we got swoop bikes. We have
sand people.
We have Tusken Raiders. We have a dewback. So it is like. It's like, oh, you think we're done with fan service, huh? Here we go. Now, that being said, I thought it was awesome. I mean, it's fun. It's like going back to the town you grew up in, and you look around, it's like, oh, wow, that's there now. And there wasn't something there. And, oh, hey, there's the place we used to hang out over on Friday nights. And there's so it was a trip down memory lane. And I was like, by the way, I don't know if we're going to talk a whole lot about the plot or just kind of hit what was cool about this episode. But I mean, like I said, all the attention to detail, if that was not CGI that they did for Mos Eisley, holy crud, did they make sure that they nailed it. Of course, if they didn't,
everybody would be rubbing arms.
People like us, the net nerds, would be like going, bah, 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 bah.
The hangar looked very similar to the one that the Millennium Falcon was parked in.
Yeah, smaller, but yeah. I mean... but the outside of the cantina, it was like, did they go to Tunisia? No, they didn't. They filmed this in L.A., so, I mean, wow.
That was the most powerful bit. I mean, seeing the cantina again, you talk about the flood of nostalgia that occurs. Like, in The Last Jedi, when Yoda showed up, I squealed like a child.
Yeah.
It was a similar reaction to seeing the cantina again.
So I guess we can just kind of cruise through the episode a little bit. It starts off with the Mandalorian being chased. We have the Top Gun scene.
Actually, my brother called it the hot shot scene.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, because he did the thing that Charlie Sheen did. He just basically slammed on the brakes, let the guy get ahead, and then just shot him out of the sky. You're like, okay, yeah, that's not how it works, but it's Star Wars. We'll go with it. Yeah,
and so we got that going on. His the Razor Crest is damaged, so he's got to find a place to land. And lo and behold, we're in Tatooine, and he lands to get his ship fixed. And I think it was this episode when it finally dawned on me. Sorry if I've been slow. I mean, because the pit droids are there, and he's like, no droids, and I mean, it's obvious why he doesn't like droids. Because
the memory that they flash back to of the battle droids and I guess the Clone Wars era.
So, I mean, yeah, that's obvious. I will say the first moment I got taken out of this episode was with whoever the lady was playing.
Sedaris.
I mean, it just seemed, I felt like I was watching like, kind of like a sitcom, and a person who like Tim Conway comes out to be, the mechanic or something. It just seemed like it didn't fit. I don't know. It felt awkward to me. I eventually liked the character, but it just seemed like it was I don't know.
I mean, I didn't really have a problem with that character. I had a problem with the young bounty hunter go-getter character.
I just thought that was kind of bad acting.
Yeah, maybe very one note. It wasn't very developed. It wasn't predictable.
You know what was interesting? On my first viewing, I really thought that they were going to turn around and reveal that he wasn't a novice, that he was play acting, that he was taking advantage of the Mandalorian's need for this job in order to get paid and putting on an act. That was my first instance. I was like, okay, clearly you're not this naive.
Well, in a way, he kind of was, because I mean, all props to Star Wars Underworld, and I liked one of the guys their take on this. I didn't think about it when I watched the episode, so this is all theirs, not mine. Mm-hmm. That clearly this was a kid of privilege who wants to make a name for himself,
live the life,
and he gets the costume, and he going out and trying to he's trying to it's kind of like
he doesn't care about the money.
It's kind of like the rich kid trying to be all tough, so I thought that was kind of an interesting take, and that's because he said he was from the mid rim and stuff like that. But anyway, so the Mandalorian meets him in the cantina, and the interesting thing about the cantina is that it's totally run by droids. The first thing I noticed was that, hey, the droid detector thing isn't in the door anymore, and then all of a sudden they pan, and there's very well could be Eve 99 from, I think, Eve 99. Mm-hmm. Pull out the cards, we'll figure it out. But anyway, the droid from Jabba's palace, who is checking in R2D2 and C3PO. Maybe after Jabba's palace blew up, he just went and started, serving drinks. But now this place that was once segregated mm-hmm. is not.
And what's also interesting, it's mostly empty.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's necessarily because from the time that the Mandalorian leaves Amy Sedaris at the dock with his ship and he walks to the cantina, he's walking past those shots that we saw of the stormtroopers' helmets on spikes and whatnot. And it seems like maybe Mos Eisley, even though it's in the Outer Rim, has taken kind of a hit downward. Mm-hmm. It's no longer the hustle and bustle that you saw in either the original version or the special edition. And then you get to the cantina, and it's, maybe it's Tuesday afternoon, and there's a day shift, so everybody's working. But it's interesting that it's not the busy happening place that it was in A New Hope.
It's more of a backwater town now.
It's gone back to and maybe it was just a question of because they even drop a hint on regarding the Hutts, how their eventual target worked. She even worked for the Hutts, that kind of thing. But it makes you wonder if maybe it's a question of the death of Jabba may have impacted the dynamics of Mos Eisley's economy to the point that everybody's just kind of left.
We are in New Orleans. Let's be honest. The mob is bad, but the mob is good for
business.
Mm-hmm. So
mob boss gone. New mob boss is elsewhere, so everybody goes there.
So the thing I also liked about the cantina was that it was very much an homage to 1977 when you got like it was like a bug looking dude, and they didn't do CGI stuff. It was like just
costumes.
It looked like I said, one guy he looked like a fly or something, and then he had a little snaggletooth guy. So it looked that rough 1977 thing.
The other thing, no band.
Yeah, no band.
Yeah. It shows that things have changed. And again, I don't know if there's value in the nostalgia of showing us a particular thing that we adore other than just that nostalgia itself. It begins to become a lot more interesting for me as a viewer if it's changed. And it's like, oh, okay, so there's story elements at play here. This planet has changed. The dynamics have changed. And you get to make these fun theories about the Hutts, etc.
So I guess, and this we'll talk about this when we get to the end of the episode, but the title, The Gunslinger. Obviously, I think when we meet this kid in the cantina, that we are to assume that he is the gunslinger.
And he's not.
Do you think he's the gunslinger?
No.
I don't think so either.
I think it's Ming-Na Wen's character.
I don't even think that.
You think it's a Mandalorian?
I think it's whoever is I think it's whoever the cameo is at the end.
Okay.
That we really don't know who yet, that we'll speculate here in a little bit. Okay. So the kid gets the Mandalorian to go with him into the desert, and they're riding on swoop bikes. Yeah, and actually, again, the special effects of this show are really pretty good.
I like the how this battle, this little mini firefight sort of played out with the light flashes that we got to see. That was a little fun little new dynamic that we hadn't seen.
And
before.
it makes me wonder. I mean, we've talked in the past how the length of the episodes has it's kind of taken us aback because it's short. You know, it's not the full hour-long length episode. But I wonder if that's part of the benefit that they do get because you're only making 30 to 40-minute episodes. You can put a bit more into the special effects. I mean, this is Disney Corporation. They have all the money in the world, but even they will go, this is how much money you're going to have to make this.
So okay. So you mentioned episode a couple times, and I think it was this one where Brittany and I were watching it, and it's like we're off to a different place. No Cara Dune, no Keel or however you pronounce it, Quill, however you pronounce his name. It's like so we've been waiting to figure out how these episodes create an arc,
Right.
and I don't think it's there. I just think it's just episodic. It's like watching The Big Bang Theory. You have characters, they have this is the situation they're dealing with for this episode. So again, checking your expectations at the door. My expectations was that we were going to go, it was going to be a clear line, and I don't think we're going to be able to, because we've only got 2-3 more episodes to go after the one we're talking about. And it's tough to draw a clear line except for he's being chased for having Baby Yoda. That's the only thing.
I saw someone say that it's nice to have Xena Warrior Princess back on television because it's kind of like that. It's like, I'm going to get into a new adventure this week, and then we'll move on to the next adventure next week. And where this all leads, and again, I think like this episode in particular, it's like a repeat. Okay. He meets some unsavory types. He tries to make a little bit of money, and he gets into an adventure, and he realizes, oh, I can't stay here. There's too much heat. I'm going to have to leave. Now, we've seen that play out a couple of times now, and so you begin to think, as a viewer, when's he going to figure out that this isn't going to work for him?
Right.
The comparison that I drew to was, when you say that, is the old TV show The Incredible Hulk.
Oh, yeah.
David Banner walking from town to town. He always ends up in a situation where the Hulk has to be involved and, in order to save the day, but then he can't stay. He's got to move on. And so the supporting characters rotate in and out, but he's the only constant. So in this case, the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda tend to be the only constant.
And that's the thing is I think, again, checking your expectations at the door is that everybody gets up in arms because something didn't happen like they thought was going to happen, but nobody told you that this was going to be a certain way.
No.
So, but like I said, so I'm kind of enjoying it now. Now that I've gotten over that hump, and it's like, all right, now I'm like you. I kind of look forward to the episodes a little bit more. Now, if there's a cliffhanger, that makes that's going to be great when they can link 2 episodes together. But for right now, it's just like it's just a fun journey.
And I'll give you another extreme example because we're in New Orleans.
Extreme.
Treme. I can't tell you how much criticism that show got just for nothing ever happens, and so like, yeah, I see the expectations of this being a narrative arc that's going to lead in a particular direction. I think, yeah, and I think the other side of it is you look at number of episodes, you see, 8. You're like, okay, well, this is going to be a relatively short story, and they're gonna get to the end, and they're gonna get to the point here by episode 8. We don't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be some kind of cliffhanger in episode 8 that's designed to bring us back for season 2. But we don't know what that cliffhanger could be. I mean, it could be minor or huge.
So I will say, because neither one of you guys have seen tonight's episode, which is episode 7, right? Dropped on Wednesday. And I can't wait for you guys to watch it because there's one element that where Britt and I sitting on the couch went, oh, crap. So just wait for the oh, crap moment. But anyway, let's get back to the gunslinger.
Just FYI, my brother just texted me going, Mandalorian, you left it there? So clearly he must have just seen that episode.
So anyway, so we're traveling through the Dune Sea, going after some sniper. But anyway, I will have to say the coolest moment was meeting up with the Tusken Raiders because of this. I'm gonna tell you a quick story.
The pan.
Well,
They're there.
yeah, I mean that was funny because the guy's talking crud about the Tusken Raiders, and he's like, "Well, tell them yourself." And he turns, there's 2 Tusken Raiders there, but no, the coolest thing was that they were speaking in American Sign Language, and here's the element that was so cool about that. So I'm in the 501st, and this was back when I was in Nebraska, and there was 3 of us at this small town parade. One guy was dressed as Vader, and 2 of us were stormtroopers. Now I was in my stormtrooper, and then my friend James was stormtrooper as well, and James is completely deaf. And what's really cool is that a lot of the members of the squad in around the Omaha area, because that's where they were. I was in Kearney, a couple hours away, but a lot of them took sign language courses so that they could better communicate with James. James and we would communicate via our phones, So, but here's the thing: is we're waiting for this parade to start. We've all got our helmets on, Darth Vader and 2 stormtroopers. And this lady comes over with her son, who's in a band uniform. It was homecoming parade or something. And she wants to get a picture with us, or wants her son to get her picture taken with us. And she's speaking in sign language as well. And James, in his, stormtrooper armor, you saw he gets that kind of head cock like Luke gets, in the detention cell, and automatically he doesn't take his helmet off, but he starts signing back to her. And so here's a stormtrooper and this little kid signing back and forth, having a conversation. And the guy dressed as Darth Vader, Jesse, he turns, so imagine this, Vader turns to me and just stares at me and goes, and I'm censoring myself, but he goes, "That's really effing cool." Because it was like that inclusiveness, that kid, all of a sudden here's a stormtrooper talking to me in sign language. Now, fast forward to the Mandalorian, there's probably some deaf kid that was, watching, the episode, and oh my God, the Sand People are talking in sign language, and the Mandalorian is talking that inclusiveness. And, you can talk about the woke culture or, whatever you want to call, but Brittany and I talk about all the time that representation matters. I think that's why Rey is such a great character, because there are girls that can go and kick butt now, and that's why, seeing somebody speaking sign language matters.
It was a cool moment, but it was also it was narratively fair. They earned that, because if you think about the Tusken Raiders, just like, how else are they going to communicate?
All they ever did was go,
it's like they sound like Scooby-Doo or whatever, but it's like, so yeah, you never heard them use language.
It humanized them.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have to be able to communicate with one another.
And the Mandalorian humanized them as well.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And treated them as equals.
As people.
Yeah. And that there's a message in that as well. But very cool moment, and it didn't feel forced at all or contrived. It was nice.
And actually, the guy playing the Tusken Raider actually is deaf, and he does speak sign language. So that was, so yeah, I like I said, I remembered that moment of my friend James, speaking to that kid on the street and how powerful that moment was. So that was really pretty cool. So, all right. So now they have to wait for nightfall because she has the high ground. Did you catch that reference there?
Yes.
There's a meme going around right now that said, just realized in Return of the Jedi, when Darth Vader says, they're in the throne room, and he says, "Obi-Wan has taught you well," that Luke has the high ground at that moment. Talk about retconning. But anyway, so they have the high ground, so they have to wait, and the Mandalorian goes and takes a nap. And I thought that the interaction here was just hilarious when, if ever your dad's been asleep or something like that, and you're putting your finger in his face or something like that, and he says, "You done?" I just thought that was funny. They put humor in without being gaggy or
showy. They're not show. It's the kind of humor that you can kind of go, okay, it's 2 guys stuck in a crummy situation. The only way you're gonna make yourself feel good at that moment is to kind of make a joke, but you can't really kind of go all out because you're still stuck there. So you're gonna do something small, and sometimes even just poking somebody makes you feel good because that's about as much power as you have in that moment.
It's foreshadowing too, because it shows us that the Mando is in control.
He's aware of his surroundings at all times.
Yeah.
Well, it's also interesting. When I was watching that flashback, the reference I got was the Hurt Locker, the Oscar-winning movie about the. I want to say it was the Hurt Locker. Yeah, when it's people in Iraq, and there's a situation where they're in a sniper versus sniper situation, and they're just stuck there for hours, staring at one another, knowing that if you make a move, the other person's got you dead to rights. So how do you figure a way around this? You got to come around and kind of outflank them, so to speak. And then you're like, okay, how does Mando figure out? Okay, we need to flank them. Well, we can't do it during the daylight. Okay, let's wait till nightfall. We'll figure it out then.
So another reason we know that this kid, the supposed gunslinger, anyway, this bounty hunter wannabe, we know comes from privilege. Is that the binoculars? He said those were brand new. That they gave. I'm backtracking just a little bit. Just like I said, after the fact, you catch some of these things.
It's an interesting thing because it's almost like, and I don't necessarily want to get into too much discussion about analyzing the episode and we are doing that, but no, with regards to how audiences or how the authors or the creators see the audience. Because what I kept thinking was, this is almost like a bounty hunter fanboy. He went and got the costume.
Yeah. He's
read the stories. He wants to go live the life. And then he gets out there and he finds out, nope, it's nothing like the books. Well, it's nothing like the movies.
He's the Kylo Ren of bounty hunters.
Basically. He's seen all the holodeck vids. He knows he can do this. He's got the money. I got all the new gear. Let's go. And then you're like, oh, you're going to fall flat on your face because, you got outsmarted by people you think are beneath you.
So it was the other best line in this episode was, so the Mandalorian gets picked off a couple times by whoever the sniper is.
Fennec, I think is her name. Let me see.
Which don't even look it up, because here's my criticism of it's like I'm not getting invested really in any character anymore except for Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian, because it's like, that's a really cool character, dead. That's a really cool character, not here for this episode. That's a really cool. I can't wait to see this actor play in this, dead. So it's like, why get hung up? But yeah, it was Finnick because but anyway, he gets pegged a couple times by sniper shots, and he said, yeah, the Beskar, saved me. And the kid goes, I don't have any Beskar, and he goes, nope. And it was just like, and again, we've talked about this in previous episode. No facial expression because you just got a helmet, but the body language that they use in the acting, Pedro Pascal is doing a great job just being a mime.
A lot of it comes from his voice, just the tone, because you can say that nope as a matter of fact, nope.
But there's also the turn of the head, and so they're directing that very well. I don't know. Thoughts?
No, you're right.
So we get Dave, you mentioned going up to the ridge and they're using the flares. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was a new thing. I like seeing new stuff in the show. It's an excuse to show us new things. So do it.
Yeah. So they're launching flares to blind the scope, and eventually they take down Finnick, and so they're like, all right. What I didn't understand, they had two swoop. Well, or did one swoop bike get destroyed?
Or I thought one may have gotten damaged.
I don't know, but they got. If they had two bikes, can't they just put one on the handlebars? I mean, that was what I was like. Why? But anyway.
Yeah, they got separated.
Yeah,
so.
They have to go get. They have to go get the dewback. To
help bring back their bounty.
So the Mandalorian goes off to get the dewback, and Finnick is trying to convince whatever this kid's name is fanboy to help her out, and kind of start to figure out that the Mandalorian is being
more
valuable than she is, blah blah blah, and so off he goes, and Mandalorian comes back and they're not there.
But then he also shoots her.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I buried the lead, didn't I?
He leaves. That's the other thing that's interesting. It's that for a moment there you go, okay, maybe he's getting wise, maybe he's getting smart, because she's clearly playing him. She's trying to get him to either drop his guard enough so she can kill him, or maybe convince him to go after the Mandalorian, she can escape. But in that moment, it's almost like he had enough of getting picked on, and decided to fire back literally, and in this case, just takes her out.
Yeah, it did seem like he maybe lashed out there a little bit
Mhm.
because there was no logical reason for her to take her out. Because when the Mando returns, he says, "Oh, there's like no bounty now because we
You
were
kill-
supposed to bring her in alive."
Right, you killed her, and there goes the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
And if it's and then that goes back to the whole idea of if he was really so smart and if he was really a good bounty hunter, he probably should have waited for Mando to get back with the dewback, taken all the way back, bring back their quarry, and then once they're paid for that, then try to screw Mando over. But he doesn't.
By the way, let's rewind just a little bit because I left out one of the other favorite moments in this episode was when what's her name and the pit droids are playing Sabacc.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was well played, Lucasfilm, well played.
1995 at Galaxy's Edge.
And then you hear it almost sounded like the Crate Dragon roar. I don't know. It sounded like when you first see Obi-Wan in episode 4, but maybe I don't know, was the gangplank just coming down or what was going on? But they're freaking out because something's coming out of the ship, and here comes Baby Yoda walking down. Now I know they're using a little bit of CG for this, but I mean, again, they're doing such a good job with this puppet.
Yeah. I mean, you can't. I see no fault with it, really. I mean, and everybody loves him, and
he's turning
convincing.
He's turning out to be the big kind of sort of star of the show.
So, listening to other people talk on the internet and stuff like that, and just people's theories, and we should bring in an element to each show where I heard a theory, and then we can go over theories we hear and just say what we think about them. So here's one. Somebody said, "What if?" I can't remember who it is, so I apologize for not citing my source, but this isn't my theory. What if Baby Yoda is using some sort of Jedi mind trick to make people think that he's all good and cute and cuddly, and he's actually evil?
It's an interesting theory. I mean, I guess
if that is the case, can you imagine Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni sitting there going, "Oh, this just went wrong. We're gonna tick off a lot of people." But
I think there have been a lot of clues over the course of the show that show that he is an infant. I mean, and not that developed in the Force.
And that he cares about the Mandalorian as well.
Yeah, there's so many things. It would be a giant misdirect, and I love those kinds of fun theories. But, it's like Jar Jar's the Emperor or whatever. But
well, I guess my question is to what purpose? Because if the whole point is he was trapped by the group of whatever that was holding him in episode 1, and the Mandalorian got him freed. Well, okay, that's the point when he could go, okay, Jedi mind trick, take me to this planet and drop me off here, and I'm free.
Yeah.
Okay, job done.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the thought for any of these characters to have that would say this being is a potential threat or a potential weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's so powerful in the Force, and apparently the entire species might be. And so it, for any character that encounters this being and is like, I want to off this thing because I feel threatened by it, I'm gonna have no problem with that story, because obviously.
So So anyway, that was just the theory I heard. I don't put any stock to it. I just think it'd be kind of fun when you hear a theory, then we can throw it out there and just chat about it. But so we get to the hangar, and there's what'd you say, fake Kylo Ren, or what do we decide to call him? Fanboy. That's right, fanboy. And he's got Baby Yoda in his arms, and the mechanic, and he's calling all the shots. And of course, Mandalorian gets out of it with one of those flares. So that's why you have the flares in the running up to the ridge thing, so that we can get him out of this situation. And Mandalorian ends up offing Fanboy, and Fanboy drops Baby Yoda, and everybody on the planet all screech at once. And then a new meme is created because you have Baby Yoda peeking around the basket. So now everybody is using that for me when I hear this, or me when Mom's cooking baking cookies or something. So But again, very cute, very cute. Um, and then off they go. I mean, that's kind of the episode, right? But
Kind of.
we
Yes.
get to the end. I mean, you're kind of like, all right, we're done, and then we go back to what we presume is dead Finnick. I don't know how taking a blaster shot to the gut without armor,
Not moving.
and laying there in the desert for an entire day. I mean, she's got to be dead.
Mhm.
But somebody's coming up, walking up, and kneels down, and then cut to credits. Who do we think it is? Who was your? We've now probably heard a lot of ideas, but who'd you immediately think?
I immediately thought of Cad Bane, and it was a Filoni directed episode. It would have been a deep cut for the uninitiated, but for Clone Wars fans, it would have been a huge fan service.
See, and if you watched Rebels, Filoni put in a lot of Clone Wars stuff. He is proud of the Clone Wars stuff, and I get that. And they also said that you will not see any OG characters, basically. So there's a lot of people who thought it was Boba Fett. Because for two reasons. One, there's the sound of spurs.
Mhm.
And
That
apparently
is the big clue.
But
yeah.
apparently, I have to go back and watch Empire and Jedi now because they say that Ben Burt put in spurs, when Boba Fett walks around anywhere. I've never heard that in my life, but I'll have to go back and watch it. I'm not going to doubt anybody. But there's also some it sounded like kind of a little radio chatter or something that is the same kind of sound effect that when you see Boba Fett with Jabba the Hutt in Episode 4. So, I don't know. So they think those are kind of some clues that it's Boba Fett. However, I don't think Boba Fett's going to be in this at all.
Can you imagine though, like if it were Boba Fett and we had a Mando shoot out at the OK Corral at some point?
Oh, okay. So have you ever seen the footage? It was unfinished, but it's basically animatics. It was kind of really rough, but it was Cad Bane and Boba Fett shoot out at the OK Corral. Have you ever seen that?
Mm-mm.
It was like an episode that never aired. I'll show you before you leave. It's really pretty cool. But I don't see Boba Fett now. If you want a deeper cut in the Aftermath books, there is a character. They have these little vignettes every now and again. There is a character who ends up finding Boba Fett's armor and ends up wearing that armor. So maybe it's that guy. That would be, you'd really have to do the summer reading, and do the summer homework to get that. But the Cad Bane thing, that was the one where I was like, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I would like to see how they do that live action too. And I think they
because
could.
he's an interesting looking character. So like doing
He's an
him
awesome character in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, and it just feels like, okay, so unless it's somebody we've already met and there's just everybody's speculating, needlessly. But I don't know why they would frame him that way without revealing who it is, without it being a new player. And I also feel like
that's why it can't be Chubbs.
No.
Right. I don't think it's Chubbs or one of these other
bounty hunters or any of the other characters we've met so far in the show, because
they
if
would
it
just
is,
show them,
they would
right?
just show them,
Yeah. So they take great care not to reveal who it is. You have the spurs, like you said, and I think it's clearly meant to be a bounty hunter of some kind seeking Baby Yoda and the Mando,
or has a fob on Finnick.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I mean, there was presented as a person who is competent. In the set, because like again, we go back to earlier in the episode. This kid, part of the reason he was presented as being kind of an idiot is because he was going after this Mark, who he clearly had no ability to bring in on his own, which is why he brought the Mando in to help him, because he actually even knew he couldn't handle it. So they go to great lengths to present things in this manner. So if somebody's after her, presumably they would be very competent at what they do.
Yeah.
And so then you begin to think, who are competent bounty hunters that we have encountered in this universe? Cad Bane, Boba Fett. These are two good theories, I think.
Fredo, who'd you think it was right off the bat?
Off the top of my head, the only one that made sense was Cad Bane, given the way that the scene is framed. Given that you're not going to introduce a character we haven't met that way. I mean, maybe they would, but I don't think why, because it makes no sense. You would have just introduced a character. Part of the dynamic of this episode and the previous one is to show us that the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda are being hunted throughout the galaxy. Now it's obvious that they can't, maybe it's not obvious to him, but it's obvious that they're gonna keep coming after the both of them. So when you establish that dynamic, it makes sense that competent, capable bounty hunters will be after them. I mean, we see it in the last episode when the bounty hunters track them down to the sanctuary planet. We see it in this episode from the get-go when he's being chased down by the pilot, and then later on when Fennec reveals to the fanboy that no, he's the bigger target than I am. So clearly there's a mark on both of them. So if it's not a character we haven't met yet, you don't, if it's a character we met yet, you just show them. But then that wouldn't have the impact that this has. This is meant to tease us that somebody big is coming.
Sure.
And this somebody big is somebody who's aware of who Fennec, who's lying on the ground, is, who the Mandalorian is, and you just go, okay, well, what is a major character that we haven't seen that we could theorize, okay, this is somebody who's coming. Cad Bane's the one that makes the most sense.
I kind of ruled out Boba Fett in my initial thinking because I just didn't think they would go there, right? But there are a lot of clues that could suggest that this might be... We're on Tatooine, for Pete's sake, which is the last place that we saw him. There are references to Jabba the Hutt.
I've always wondered if they would dare go there. I mean, it's been kind of the fan desire. We've got everything from comic books
Two words, Darth Maul.
That's the thing. We've had
so I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but I mean, they would absolutely go there because in the Clone Wars, they turned Darth Maul into a spider, and actually it was kind of funny after Solo, my brother called me. My brother had never seen any of the Clone Wars cartoon or anything like that, animated series, never saw any of that. And he calls me back and actually, I'm sorry, it was after the Rise of Skywalker, the first trailer, and you hear the Emperor laughing, and he calls back and says, how many more people have to die and come back to life in this series? I mean, it's going to be one too many if it's like, I know George Lucas has said, that Boba Fett escaped the Sarlacc pit, but well,
that's part of my dynamic and part of the kind of the math I'm making in my head. On the one hand, fans have wanted him out of the Sarlacc pit for ages, and we've seen characters come back. I mean, the reason Darth Maul has the spider legs is because George Lucas said, if I throw him down this shaft, people are going to want him to come back. So Obi-Wan has to slice him in half, and that's the end of him, and it wasn't. So clearly there's a way for any character who's not been 100% shown and revealed to die that they can come back in this universe.
I think if they bring back Boba Fett, I think they cheapen everything they've done to make the Mandalorian the character that he is, because it's very much, again, in the 501st, and I'm very proud of my TK armor, my Stormtrooper armor, and I'm like at a trooping and I'm like, yeah, man, Stormtrooper armor, isn't this so cool? And then somebody shows up in his Vader, and everybody's like, you're a Stormtrooper, this is awesome. And then Vader shows up and everybody's like, screw you, there's Vader. And you're like, or, the poor people dressed up as X-Wing pilots, it's like they work really hard on their stuff, and then all of a sudden, here comes like my friend who's got a Gamorrean guard that is absolutely awesome, and it just makes you
go big or go home.
Well,
baby.
So if it's like we've built up this character for so long, and all of a sudden here's Boba Fett, then you've cheapened everything you've done. So I don't think they can bring back Boba Fett. I don't know.
I think they're teasing us. I think that they're trying to make us think that it might be Boba Fett, but then it'll be somebody else. And so that's why I feel good about the Cad Bane idea.
And the fact that it was a Filoni-directed episode, I think, is why it's Cad Bane.
Right.
Because Boba Fett is not his. Cad Bane is his.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, he loves those characters. So, you wanted to talk about plot holes.
Oh, yeah. There was an article that came out.
You want to get me fired up. You sent this on Twitter, and I got all ticked and probably like Trump tweeted, over.
Yeah, I mean, it clickbaity stuff. And that's just the nature of the internet now. But and so like, are there plot holes now because of the rule about not removing your helmet? And so somebody wrote an article like, well, here are all the examples of times where Mandalorians have removed their helmet on screen. And so take it away, Aaron. Go nuts on this.
It's not. Well, the problem was that, I mean, it was Screen Rant, and so I'm going to rant at Screen Rant. It was not a plot hole. It's not a plot hole, because now if this would have been in the same time frame as Rebels and the Clone Wars, then yeah, you got a plot hole. But we are 6 years after Return of the Jedi. The fall of Mandalore has happened, whatever this great purge is. So we have the Mandalorians we don't know the whole story, but they're obviously decimated, and they've probably created some new rules. Amongst themselves. It's a reformation, if you will, of it's like, we got to change some rules. So, I mean, here's another plot hole. You never heard any of the Mandalorians and all the Clone Wars and all the Rebels episodes say this is the way. Yep. There's Screen Rant. There's a plot hole. They've never said this is the way. So it bothered me there. Now, I think what's a more curious question where that writer should have gone was speculate or raise the question of what has happened that now this is a thing. Because it clearly
is now the case.
Because clearly it wasn't a thing. I mean, and in Rebels, Sabine had her helmet on and she was still a great character. Then she would take her helmet off sometimes, but she could still emote and could still be a very, relatable and likable and awesome character with a helmet on. So, but she took her helmet off, but now it is, and everybody did that, like the article said, but now it is thou shalt not take, and that's why that episode was called The Sin. And I think the sin, that is the sin, is taking, when they're talking about taking off your helmet or having somebody taking it off in front of somebody. Now, the bigger question is, why is that a sin? Why is this a big deal?
Well, what's happened? Because that's one of
they're in hiding.
Which is one of the difficulties when you are juggling multiple properties within the universe, that a lot of people kind of they start conflating them all into the same time period. I mean, we're talking Rebels takes place years before The Mandalorian. So clearly stuff has happened.
Yeah, but the deal is that Filoni was, back to Dave Filoni. He did Clone Wars, he did Rebels, and he's involved in The Mandalorian. So why are we calling it? I mean, it's his story.
He knows what he's doing.
Right. Now, the plot hole, if anybody wants to talk about plot holes again, is like, suddenly, Luke and Leia are twins, or, God, we can go through the Leia's classic trilogy and we can get all sorts of plot holes. Well, so I think I hope we get more of that. Why is this a deal? And more of the Mandalorian history. They've been teasing it, and that's why my frustration is, and I will say, spoiler alert. I mean, but the new episode that came out tonight, it's not a spoiler, but we still don't really get anything on the Mandalorian, history. We get, they mention just a smidgen of it, but nothing that is revealing. And that's what I'm waiting for. We've got 2 more episodes left.
Well, it's interesting. I don't think we're going to get it this season, because we've only seen glimpses of the Mandalorian culvert, the secret group that was hiding in that planet. We saw it in the first episode when you first meet the armor, and then you saw it in the 3rd episode when they come out to rescue Mando. But by and large, you've seen the Mandalorian be a single solitary figure. And that's the nature of the show. So I don't expect that we're all of a sudden going to go back to like the last episode of the season, and we're going to get a massive info dump, because we don't even know where the other Mandalorians went.
I think, however, and Dave, then I'll throw it to you to get what you think about the plot hole things. But I think, however, that if you're on Disney Plus, obviously watching The Mandalorian, I think they're going to force a lot of people to watch the new and last season of Clone Wars, because I know they have the whole Siege of Mandalore that goes on there. So I think there's going to be, there's going to be information that's going to be gleaned from that maybe, so it is the summer reading that you have to do.
I agree with that. And I think we mentioned that in our previous episode. It's just a natural. There was so much content from Mandalore in the original series. It's not a secret that the Siege of Mandalore is going to play a major part in the upcoming season. And then he said that's at the ending of the series as well, which is kind of compelling because it's like, well, we're going to end this story in a really compelling way, I'm guessing. So there's another reason for us to all tune into it. But
which we might talk about on this podcast. So
yeah.
Do you think there are plot holes with the whole taking off the helmet thing? Or
no, I mean,
did
like,
you just want me to get ticked off in this episode?
I love getting you ticked off. I think like the idea too of that there are different clans that could factor into it too. I mean, there may be a particular clan that these people are offshoots of that had a very rigid philosophy on the armor. You know, it could be that
it's religion, for crying out loud.
Kind of like the, you have the Catholic Church, and then you have Reformation, and so you have the Lutherans break off from that, and then you have Methodists break off from that, and then you have like Calvinists,
and then you have the Mandalorians.
So we may be talking. This group may be the Mandalorian Puritans.
Now, I know that sometimes we have to do somersaults to come to those sorts of conclusions in Star Wars because, like, why does Luke keep kissing his sister? You know, that's the biggest one of all. But, this one's tiny. It's small. It's not a big deal at all.
Like I said, I think getting back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, I think this, it's not a plot hole, but I think people are maybe also a little bit unsettled because this is so episodic, and it's like, you get a little bit of, this is the way. And then you're like, what's the way? And then, oh, never mind about the way. We're going to be, moving on to the next thing, over here. They keep dropping these little like nuggets that we're like, I want to know more about that. And then the next episode doesn't talk about that. And eventually they probably will. And
yeah,
it'll be like,
hey, that's what's beautiful about it. It's like you're laying all these interesting questions out there, like landmines, and you're like, and now we're trying to avoid them. But at some point,
I said nuggets, you said landmines, so we're basically talking about dog crap, So.
Those doggy treats you'll find on the yard.
But good, right? Good dog poop.
So, to wrap this up in the episodes that we've had so far, this is the 5th one. Yeah. So, on 1 to 5, 1 being your favorite, 5 being your least favorite of the first 5 so far, where does this one rank?
For me, probably around maybe 3 or 4. It's good, but like right now, I'll probably put the first and third episodes as my 2 favorites. Probably the Sanctuary one as the third one. This one come after that, and probably the one with the Jawas, even though it's the funniest of them, last.
Yeah, I love the Jawas one. Yeah, this one's probably last for me. I didn't dislike it, but there were certain parts of it that, again, feel repetitive because like we're into this point now with him where he's repeating this pattern, and we want him to learn from his experiences and start making different decisions going forward. And so like that part of it, it's like, okay, we've done this now a couple of times. Let's move forward.
So, for me, with all of the stuff that made me go, yeah, we're on Tatooine, this is cool and everything, but it just I didn't feel like, and I liked the interaction with the Tusken Raiders and everything, but I'm going to probably put it at like my second or third because I didn't feel like we went anywhere, story wise. I didn't feel like anybody grew. I didn't feel like I got moved along on the continuum. And I may be giving away the next episode here, but is this the one that ends with Mandalorian unscrewing the gear shift knob again and dropping it into
that's the next one.
That's the next one. Well, anyway,
no, but I find interesting is that and you're saying it's repetitive, which is true. It is repetitive, but I wonder if We only get so many episodes, but I think part of it is that you need to instill in the audience that expectation of they are being hunted. They are not, they are on the run. The people that they're having to turn, he's gone now to Tatooine, which we've established from episode 4, A New Hope, that is the end of the universe, or the end of the galaxy as they know it. And it's even fallen even further below that now that, stuff has changed. So you have to establish the dynamic for him that he's got to get more desperate in order to start making the decisions that we see him make in the next episode.
And the premise itself is entertaining. We talked about the old Incredible Hulk Lou Ferrigno show.
Exactly.
I mean, this is the same basic thing. It's like
that ran for years.
So I get it. It's fun, but I do want to see some growth at some point too. So.
Well, right on. Well, this was thanks for listening to us. This was our episode on the gunslinger, which none of us think that the fanboy is the gunslinger. Maybe they should have called it the fanboy. But thanks for listening to the Who Dat Jedi, and the Falcons beat the 49ers. So we were all happy about that, but we didn't root for the Falcons. We rooted against the 49ers. And then just the other night, Drew Brees came out and was Drew Brees all over the place.
He was breaking a record on the way to breaking a record.
Yeah, so we'll just end with big old Who Dat.
Who dat?
Who Dat? And we'll see you on the flip side. See you, everybody.
McConkey.